Here we go. What is up, Rundown listeners? I am your co-host, Ben Peterson, alongside co-host Justin Tavener. Justin, my man, what a weekend for basketball, especially. What a weekend. How are you, buddy?
Hanging in there, yeah. It was a busy weekend. MLB's back, and we had the Final Four and the national championships. NBA's wrapping up the regular season. It's been a busy week.
Absolutely.
Not
The
only that, we have the NFL draft coming up in a couple weeks too.
NFL draft is coming up. Baseball. Then
Hey,
we
watch it.
like. All right. Well, why don't we dive right in? Speaking of national championships, let's start with arguably one of the better ends to the women's basketball season ever, as South Carolina gives the Hawkeyes a black eye, taking down Caitlin Clark and Iowa in the national championship, 87-75, behind Camila Cordoso's 15 points, 17 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 blocks. So just some key takeaways here. South Carolina wins their third national title in program history with head coach Don Staley, who has nothing but praise for Caitlin Clark and her impact on women's hoops. South Carolina, as a team, shot 48% from the floor. They shot 42% from three, and they shot an abysmal 53% from free throw. However, their defensive pressure forced a lot of Iowa turnovers late that sealed the deal for the Gamecocks' national title. Caitlin Clark, she had 30 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. She shot 10 of 28 from the floor, so 35%, and 5 for 13 for 3, which was 38%. Those numbers may not look great, but Iowa continued their strategy of living and dying by having Caitlin Clark be Wonder Woman, and she had no help for the majority of the second half. Her next highest scorer had 16 points, and they had exactly 0 bench scoring. Nobody outside of their starters scored.
That's not great.
No. As a team, Iowa shot 40% from the floor, 39% from three, and they shot 80% from free throw line. Just real quick for me, I think this game was a great representation of these two teams. Mistake-prone Iowa relying maybe too heavily on Caitlin Clark against, I would argue, the best team in the nation, South Carolina, that plays a smothering brand of basketball that forces mistakes. And you could see it late. They were trapping Iowa. They were getting second and third chance drives off of turnovers. Drive is not the right word because this is not football, but you knew what I meant. And, Iowa for sure put up a great fight. They started out crazy. They were up like 18-7 at one point in the first quarter. And then they just ultimately lost momentum in the second half. So Justin, what were your takeaways from the game? And then I'll get more into the stats as a whole of the championship.
Yeah, this just felt like just kind of like what you see in a lot of scenarios where you have one guy or one player, one girl who's just fantastic. It feels like they can carry the team, but then they just run into this juggernaut of just a great team. And as great as that one individual is, it's not enough to overcome, just how good the actual team is. This was very reminiscent of like the 2017, 2018 NBA championships, where
Yeah.
you see LeBron, who's a best player in the world, and he's going up against just a great all-around team. They're well coached. They play great defense. They get after it. They hustle. All of that stuff. And it doesn't matter how good that one individual is. It's just not enough to get them over, in LeBron's case, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Andre Iguodala, like all of those guys. And in this case, it was the same thing for Caitlin Clark. It just wasn't enough. No matter what she did, it was not going to be enough to overcome just such a suffocating South Carolina team. So
Right.
it was very reminiscent of that.
Real quick.
So that's kind of like the comparison that I drew between like that game and something I had seen in the past.
For sure. Yeah, no, I thought it was funny. I texted you during that game whenever I was realizing that nobody else on the team for Iowa was really doing anything. And Caitlin Clark was out there like that Kevin Hart clip. Help me! help me. Do you have any more thoughts on the game? So,
No.
okay. Well, I thought this stat was really cool. For the first time ever, women's college basketball got more viewers than the men's for a championship game. The women's championship drew 18.9 million viewers, while the men's only drew 14.8 million by comparison. So crazy. That's the first time in history that's ever happened. I thought that was really cool. Just to see women's basketball kind of getting the spotlight and actually dominating the spotlight for once, instead of, it feels like in some years past it's more been carried over by the men's. So Justin, Don Staley mentioned that Caitlin Clark should be praised for the effect that she's had on women's college basketball. Do you think that she's the sole reason, like the sole influence, or do you think this has been a long time coming?
I think this has been a long time coming. I mean, you look at men's college basketball and we see all of these one and dones, or they stay for 2 years and they're gone. And the transfer portal is just insane. And there's so much movement between these programs that it is so difficult to, as a fan of like Ohio State, to get to know the players, or UC to get to know the players, because, or, you can relate to this specifically as a Kentucky fan. You, every year you have a new roster, and it's so hard to get to know that and feel connected to the team that you grew up loving because you watched the same guys for 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like the 06-07 Florida Gators, where they went back to back because they returned guys and they were coming back for their juniors and senior seasons, and we were able to see those guys play for several years in college, and you feel connected to them. That's not happening on the men's side anymore. And you just see guys, they come in for a year and they're gone. Or some of the good talent is going straight to the G League, or they're going, or, a lot of the great talent nowadays is coming from Europe.
For sure.
So it just feels like we're just not able to be connected to some of these guys that are, on the team on the men's side. And so, but we are seeing that a lot more on the women's side, where these women, I mean, Caitlin Clark's a senior. She's been there for 4 years, and she's had time to develop and people have had time to develop a connection with her and feel like, I'm proud to be an Iowa fan, and
Exactly.
I'm really excited to root for her because I know who she is.
Exactly.
And I've been able to watch her develop for 4 years, where it's like Kentucky, it's like, oh yeah, I've seen, Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham play for 4 months. Yay. Like, it's so much harder to feel connected to those guys when they've been in the program for 4 months and they're going to be in the NBA. Whereas, like, Caitlin Clark, you got to watch her every step of the way. And so I do think it's been a long time coming. And I think until something like that changes and we start seeing more guys either stay with the program that they started at and not transfer around as much, or stay put in college longer. And I think until that happens, I think women's basketball is going to see these stars have more of an impact on viewership than on the men's side.
For sure. I definitely think NIL will help right the ship some with like getting guys to stay longer, because especially like your top talents, like the ones everybody wants to see, like, they're going to get lucrative NIL deals, and they'll be they'll be at that school getting that money. That being said, no, I completely agree with you. And to be honest, I'm a Kentucky basketball fan for sure, but it's been a lot harder for me to really be interested in watching every single game, because like you said, it takes me half the season to learn people's names, and then I'm starting all over again from scratch. And, I'm of the age where I didn't grow up watching Kentucky in the glory days of the 70s and 80s. I got it now. And
Yeah.
it's just like you said, the one and done is really just kind of taking away that personal aspect. Whereas, like, you get Caitlin Clark for 4 years, that's a superstar to you. It's like watching LeBron in Cleveland for 5, 6, 7 years. So completely agree with you there. Let's move on now to the men's championship, as UConn floods the boiler room, taking down the Purdue Boilermakers 75-60, despite Zach Edey's huge 37-point, 10 rebound, and 2 block performance. Now let me just repeat that. Purdue scored 60. Zach Edey had 37 of that. Yeah, so UConn. You asked me last week if UConn's run is one of the most dominant we've ever seen. Let me just let me just give you some credit. UConn wraps up its dominant title defense with a second straight championship, as their stifling defense holds Purdue to just 60 points, with Zach Edey having 37 of those. Like I said, UConn's strategy essentially was to let Edey eat and just take out everyone else, and that's exactly what they did. Because yeah, Zach Edey. I mean, if you look at his stat line and you see that, you're like, holy cow! Like he killed everybody on the court. He scored 60 points. UConn shot.
Once again, help me.
Yeah, exactly. UConn shot 48% from the floor to produce 44. The Huskies also shot slightly less terribly from three. They shot 27% from behind the arc compared to the Boilermakers' just absolutely dreadful 14%. UConn out-rebounded Purdue by 7, grabbing 35 boards to 28. To me, this was the expected outcome. I think UConn has the better team, the better coach, and they play with so much hustle. I mean, you said just last week that they were averaging like 30-point margins of victory. They were clearly the best team in college basketball. I think Purdue reached their absolute ceiling. I don't think that this end is anything that they should hang their heads about. They proved that they were the second best team in college basketball, but there are just some years where you're fighting for second place. You just know. So that's kind of all I really had. Shout out to UConn. They had just a crazy good year. Their coaching was phenomenal. Their strategies were phenomenal. They really played to their strengths, and they didn't let anything like slow them down or derail them from their plan. So overall, good year for them, and congrats to the Huskies on a back-to-back national titles. Justin, what were your thoughts for this game?
Honestly, this looked almost exactly like the women's national championship, where you have that one star and nobody else around them, and the other team, it just plays great team ball. They're coached well. I mean, it literally was the same to Caitlin Clark, Zach Edey, South Carolina, and UConn. Great teams, play great defense. They hustle. They wear you down. They're well coached. I mean, the games almost looked like mirror images,
They really did.
where it was no matter what Zach Edey did, UConn was winning that game. So I just it was weird.
For sure.
But no, this was an impressive win for UConn. I think the thing that is insane to me is if you go through the tournament, they were holding teams on average to they were holding teams to 20 points less than what they averaged throughout the regular season. If a team was averaging 85, you were lucky to get to 65 against against UConn. Their defense was so stifling. It was incredible. And the thing that you could just tell as soon as UConn kind of went on a little run towards the end of the first half,
It was over.
and then they opened up the second half. It's like I said last week. If you are tied with them or you're down by a point, you're late. If you're winning, you're on time. And if you're down by 4 or 5, you're screwed. Purdue was down 6 at halftime. At that point, seeing what I had seen UConn do all tournament, it was over. It was over. There was nothing Purdue was going to do.
Whoop that trick. Whoop that trick. Yeah.
So I just thought this was impressive. Crazy that we've seen the second back-to-back national championship in our lifetimes, with the 06-07 Florida Gators doing it. So, I mean, almost 20 years.
That's crazy, dude. First of all, rude of you to even point out that was almost 20 years ago.
This is what? 17 years ago?
Yeah, that's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that Florida Gators team was stacked. I mean, Joakim Noah, Corey Brewer, Al Horford, they had some dogs on that team.
Yeah,
They also beat my Ohio State Buckeyes in the national championship in 2007, but we're
they
not going to
sure
mention that.
did.
Anyway, you had a
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, so you had the hot take last week that Zach Edey will not work in the NBA. And I just want to rehash that, especially after, I mean, we watched him go freaking, like, he averaged almost 40 points a game the last, like, 3 or 4 games of the tournament. Um, but, I say that, I actually still agree with you. Um, I think that part of, like, why he looks so dominant is because he's got, like, you and me defending him out there. And I don't know that he has NBA toughness. And I think that's going to make the difference. When he's out there and he's got Bam Adebayo volleyball spiking his shots behind him as he's trying to score, you know,
Or
ha-
he's got Victor Wembanyama, you know,
yeah.
like cutting in and out, doing a step back three from 30 feet. He's going to end up on his ass. Like, it's just, he's not going to be able to defend that.
Yeah, let me paint you a picture here. It's 18. You and me out behind our dorm. You're dribbling the ball. You cut to the left and then hit me with a crossover to the right. My worn down Nike Pegasus lets me down, and my feet just slide out from under me, and you just hear like the textbook skirt as I'm just getting crossed up. And as Zach Edey is just getting his entire family lineage disgraced like that, he's going to be thinking about where he can open up his car dealership in Indiana, because that is, I think, we're going to see. I think he will get drafted, but I think we're going to see in the next 3 to 4 years that he'll be either out of the league or maybe like a deep rotational piece. So,
Yeah, for me, it's like I understand that we're starting to see a lot of teams have a new philosophy and go big in the NBA. I mean, we see Minnesota, like they have 2 7-footers. We see Denver, like Aaron Gordon, MPJ, Jokic, like they're a big team. We see the Thunder. They're not as big, but they still have a dominant, big man. The Lakers, like they have a good big man. Um, Trying to think, like the Sixers, the Bucks, like they all have good big men. But the one thing that is consistent among all of those is Karl Anthony Towns and Chet Holmgren and Anthony Davis and Victor Wembanyama and Joel Embiid and Bam Adebayo and Giannis and all of these guys outside of Jokic are hyper athletic. And the only reason Jokic is good is because you play 23.9 seconds of defense and he just hucks one from 35 feet and banks it in. Like either that or he like throws something behind his head and finds a perfect pass on a rope and
right.
finds his teammate for a three. So like, but Edie's not that kind of player. He's a, back to the basket, back you down. I'm going to try a little hook shot, which that doesn't work in the NBA anymore.
Nope.
Like if you can tell me what NBA player has I am only able to back you down into the post and hit a little like floater over you. That's the only thing they have in their bag. Who? Every single big man has to have a shot. Every single big man has to have some sort of athleticism to be able to take you off the dribble. He's not doing that. He's not doing that. And if he is, it's not going to be his rookie year. That's something he is going to have to develop. And I just don't think he ever will because he's so big. So I don't know. I just don't think he's going to be athletic enough to be super successful. I think he'll get drafted. I think this is a weak draft class. But I just don't think he's going to be. If he's still in the NBA in 5 years, it'll be a role player on a decent team. I think that's the best I could give him. I think that is his ceiling. That was the
Yeah.
question you had in there. I think his ceiling is a role player on a 6 seed team.
A role player on Oklahoma City.
That you watch it now. I don't want him.
Sorry,
Well,
I was
I mean,
laughing.
the only thing he can provide for us is rebounding, which we do need. So
I was laughing because Hoop Centel on Twitter posted. So Anthony Davis is question or is out today for the Golden State Warriors. Um, and they posted Los Angeles Lakers star Anthony Davis eye strain is out today versus the Golden State Warriors. He viewed the solar eclipse with non-polarized sunglasses. I hope that's not true. Anyway, on to our next topic, because just as we are talking about the ceiling of Zach Edey, we found out that Kentucky coach John Calipari had a ceiling, and he hit it about 4 to 5 years ago, and he has accepted a 5-year, $40 million deal to become the next head basketball coach at the University of Arkansas. I'm gonna let you say your piece on this, and then I will give my thoughts. Just like what are your thoughts about this? How do you think this fits? How do you think Kentucky should feel? You know.
Um, I mean, it's kind of shocking because I mean, we would consider Arkansas a, I don't know, second, maybe third tier college basketball program. They're okay. They've had some decent recent success, but not like anything amazing. So this just feels like a weird fit for him. But he did kind of come out and say, and I did watch the video that he posted, and he did come out and say that he felt like it was time to give the college, give the university a fresh voice for that program. And I have a feeling this feels like to me that it was more of the AD came to him and said, "Hey, we don't want to fire you because we don't want to pay you $33 million, but we also don't want you here next year. So
find another job."
Yeah, so do with that information what you will. And he said, "Oh, okay, cool. I'm going to Arkansas." Like that's kind of what this feels like. I don't know if that's how it went down. That's kind of the vibes it gives off.
Yeah, I agree.
What were your thoughts?
No, I agree. I definitely think that like we said, his time was up. I think he knew it. I think the AD knew it. The fans obviously knew it. And I think unlike the past few years, I think he genuinely like saw the light at the end of the tunnel. Like I genuinely think he believed with the last few years, oh, I can turn this around. I can turn this around. And I think he is realizing that just with the pressure of coaching at Kentucky and the continued inability to figure it out, that it is time for a change of scenery. And, like I said a few weeks ago, like that loss to Oakland was inexcusable. I definitely think that was the final nail in the coffin. Because I know fans have been calling for his job for 2 years now, ever since that loss to St. Peter's. And for me, it's just, I think it was just time to part ways. I did like what he said. He sounded very self-aware. I'm sure that was a prepared statement for him, and I'm sure that, he had somebody review it to make sure that he sounded as good as he could. But I mean, I did like the sentiment behind it, where he was basically like, it's time for a new voice at Kentucky, because I agree. I think we've just gotten to the point now where it's stale, and every book comes to an end, right? Every chapter ends.
Every rose has this thorn.
Yeah, you're right. And sometimes it just truly is time to move on. I mean, we clearly were not getting it done with him. And so I'm prepared, I think, as a Kentucky fan to, I understand that this being a transitional period, there's going to be time, I'm sure, where Kentucky is not as good as we have been in the regular season. But at the same time, like I've said previously, if the ceiling for our team is one and done in the playoffs, I mean, there are many, many, many coaches around the country that could get us to the playoffs and lose in the first round. So, I wish him the best. He brought me a lot of great memories in his 15 years at Kentucky. Obviously, the first national championship that I was old enough to remember. And then, Just a lot of great games, some close losses. Never forget the 38-1 season. That was a lot of fun. Um, a lot of iconic losses. Of course, like we had the Harrison twins hit like game-winning threes in back-to-back-to-back games. The year we came up short to UConn. So I mean, I am gonna miss John Calipari. Just like the memories. I think that it's time to move on, but like I appreciate everything he did for the university, and can't wait to see what's next. And hope to see Arkansas. Hope to see Arkansas take off and get some relevancy. So unless they play us, then Cats by 90.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the NBA, shall we? Do you want to give us our top 10 for each conference, and we can then talk about matchups and stuff?
Yeah. So in the Western Conference, as it sits currently, as I am reading this at 8:43 Eastern Time on April 9th, it sits Minnesota in first, Denver in second, Oklahoma City in third, the Clippers in fourth, Dallas Mavericks in fifth, the Phoenix Suns in sixth, the New Orleans Pelicans in seventh, Sacramento Kings in eighth, the Los Angeles Lakers in ninth, and the Golden State Warriors in 10th. A couple things could shake up. I know they're still jostling with the top three. I know that the Kings and the Lakers and the Pelicans are still all kind of jostling for that 7, 8, 9 area. So there is some shakeup that could happen in the West. But that's kind of how it looks right now. And then in the East, we have Boston in first, Milwaukee Bucks in second, the Orlando Magic, I called that, in third, the New York Knicks in fourth, the Cleveland Cavaliers in fifth, the Indiana Pacers in sixth, the Philadelphia 76ers in seventh, the Miami Heat in eighth, and then the Chicago Bulls in ninth, and the Atlanta Hawks in 10th.
I don't know why my brain just like auto-filled that where I thought you were about to say Chicago Bears.
No, not for a few months. They'll be in ninth place in the NFC soon enough.
They'll be in fifth place in the NFC North soon enough.
For the East, I think there is some slight changes that can be made between that 3, 4, 5 range between the Magic, Knicks, and Cavs. Boston's already locked up the 1 seed by 2 miles. But yeah, those are the teams.
It was 3 miles, and then they lost a couple games.
Yeah,
I think I saw at one
they've
point
already
there.
locked up the 1 seed.
I think I saw at one point they peaked at like a 19 or 20 point or a 20 game lead.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. So I figured we could go in and look at kind of look at the play-in games. If the season ended today, there could be some movement, but we'll just play with it like it is now. And then once we have our 8 teams, we can kind of look at each matchup and see just kind of like which are the intriguing ones and some storylines that could come out from them.
For sure. I think the East is going to be the easier one, so why don't we start with them? Are we in agreement that the top 8 seeds currently are the 8 that are going to make the actual playoffs?
Yeah. If you want to go through it, I'm going to say the Sixers beat the Heat and the Bulls probably beat the Hawks, and then the Heat beat the Bulls. So I think that's how it's going to shake out.
I agree. Yeah.
So that would leave us with first round matchups of the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat.
Talk about a first round. Good grief.
Right. I think this one's even better. The 2 and the 7 seed between the Bucks and the Sixers with a healthy Joel Embiid.
Yeah, can we all just talk about the fact that if Joel Embiid had been healthy all year, the Sixers would probably be about 10 games back from Boston in the 2nd seed?
More than likely. Up next, we would have the Orlando Magic and the Indiana Pacers. I think that could be an interesting matchup. 2 young teams, kind of probably ahead of schedule of where they thought they'd be this year. So,
yeah.
And then we have the Knicks and the Cavs, which, unfortunately for the Knicks, they did find out that Julius Randle is out for the season. They had hoped that he was going to be able to come back. He had been rehabbing his shoulder injury, but it turns out that he's going to need surgery on it, so he is out for the season. So,
Rip.
unfortunate for the Knicks, but as it sits, they are currently the 4 seed and would host in a 7-game series the Cleveland Cavaliers. So, which of the matchups that I just gave you is kind of like the most intriguing? What are some storylines that you kind of look forward to?
Um, I really look forward to, honestly, like you said, the Bucks Sixers. I think is going to be the most fun series out of that first round in the East. Um, I just, I think those are, I think those two teams, despite the difference in seeding, we've already talked about how it's because Joel Embiid got hurt. I think those two are very evenly matched. Um, I could maybe even be talked into betting Philly instead of um, Milwaukee for that series. Milwaukee, I think, sometimes comes up a little short on the defensive end. And I still just don't trust them under Doc Rivers. I think that they are not the same team defensively or offensively that they were before he started coaching there. So definitely the Sixers Bucks would be my pick for.
And if they go up 3-1, it's over.
It is.
It's over. It's over for the Bucks. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's what I should have
If
said.
if they go up 3-1, then they're gonna lose 5-3.
If they go up 3-1, I might get a second mortgage on on our condo and put it all on the Sixers to win that series.
Damn,
I'm just kidding. I will not do that.
365 days from that day, you will have been dead for 1 year, and Caitlin will be celebrating her 12-month anniversary in jail.
Yeah. So we're not going to do that.
No.
In the West, as of right now, the play-in tournament would look like this. Or do you want to do it predicting on what we think the play-in tournament will end up?
No, let's. This actually, I think, will be a very interesting play-in tournament, depending on how the seeds fall. Because unlike the East, which is pretty well set for the bottom 4, really, like, the Pelicans through the Warriors could shift, and that I think changes the dynamic entirely. So, I mean, the Suns, I think, are still only like a game and a half up on like the Warriors or something like that. So, like, realistically, any team from like 7 to 10 could lose 2 games and be out the playoffs entirely.
Phoenix and New Orleans are currently tied. Sacramento is a game back from those two teams, and the Lakers are a half game back from Sacramento, and the Warriors are a game and a half back from the Lakers.
Yeah, so I think the Warriors are a lock.
And there's like 3. Some teams have 3. Some teams have 4 games to play.
Yeah, I think the Warriors are a lock to stay the 10 seed. I don't think that's changing.
I would think that's a safe bet.
The change that I want to happen is I want the Lakers to pass the Kings. Because I genuinely think Lakers Warriors would be a phenomenal series. I don't want to see that be an all or nothing game where one of those two misses the playoffs. Because I genuinely think one of those two teams, depending on matchups, could make a decent run in the playoffs, potentially even a deep run in the playoffs. But it just really depends on, that first matchup and then obviously how they perform beyond that. But what I would love to see is the Lakers get the 8 seed and then beat the Pels. They get the 7, and then the Warriors beat the Kings in the first round, and then they beat the Pelicans, and then they're the 8.
All right, so let's run it like that. So that would give the Lakers the 7 seed, and the Warriors the 8 seed. So that means in the first round in the West, we would have the Timberwolves versus the Warriors. Andrew Wiggins would have a homecoming. That would definitely be the biggest storyline in that series. I don't think anything else. Next up, we would have the Nuggets and the Lakers, a Western Conference Finals rematch. And then we would have the Thunder and the Suns, Kevin Durant going home. And then finally, we would have the Los Angeles Clippers versus the Dallas Mavericks. So some interesting series. Any of those series stick out to you? Some storylines?
So I think I agree with Nick Wright that the Lakers' best chance to beat the Denver Nuggets. And I say this, it's only going to be still like a 25% chance at best, but their best chance to beat the Denver Nuggets is to draw them in round one. That's when LeBron and AD are the freshest. They haven't played 3 rounds of playoff games. Or I guess 2 playing games and 2 rounds of playoff games if they were to meet in like the conference finals for some reason. We saw last year where the Lakers just ran out of gas at the end of games. And I think that if you're going to beat the Denver Nuggets, you've got to draw them in round one so that you can have your guys the freshest. I think Warriors Minnesota would be a really easy way for the 1 seed to get upset. The only thing that I think is going to hurt the Warriors is that Rudy Gobert is going to be, just mashing the swamp donkey out of every shot that anybody tries to put up near the rim. And then, you said that Kevin Durant would be going home and they played the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's funny, actually, because you mean that in more ways than one. Not only is he going home to Oklahoma City, but then also Oklahoma City is sending him home. So,
Yes, sir.
I honestly, if there's any of these teams that I think get swept, I could see OKC sweeping Phoenix. I think that would be my.
I could see it going 5.
I could see like 5. The sweep wouldn't surprise me.
No shot that series goes 6.
No. I will say though, I think the most interesting series is going to be the Clippers Mavericks.
Oh yeah.
Because I think that both of those teams, despite the star power being more heavily favored to one team, I think Luka offsets that enough that that's going to be a really good, interesting series. I could see that one going.
Is that a rematch of the Western Conference semis in the bubble?
George, way off, hits the side of the backboard. Yeah.
I just remember Luka's like step back 3 to win. Like it was like game 2 or 3.
Bang, bang. Yeah. I think that's going to be the most interesting series. But what are your thoughts here on the West?
Yeah, I think the Wolves and the Warriors would be super entertaining. I could see the Warriors pushing them to 6 or 7. I just don't know if they have enough size to be able to keep up with them. Would be my fear for the Warriors. Unfortunately, I just don't think they match up well with the Nuggets or the Timberwolves. Whoever were to get the 1 seed. I just think both of those teams are kind of just matchup nightmares.
Well, all Draymond's got to do is put Rudy Gobert in a headlock, and then they're both getting ejected.
True. I think the Lakers Nuggets would be just cinema. Like it would just be beautiful to watch.
So one of my favorite things ever was Chris Broussard called the Western Conference Finals last year a close sweep, which sounds ridiculous. Like thinking about it, it's like, nah, dude, they got walked, but also like they lost, like the total margin of loss for them was like 5 total points. So like
in 4 games.
Like that is the closest sweep you can get. But yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought that was funny.
No, you're good. That was all I had anyway.
All right. Well, that I think that's going to be fun. We had one more kind of big storyline. Last week, I dropped the breaking news that Bronny James is entering the transfer portal. He also announced that he is declaring for the NBA draft. Let me just read off to you his stats for his lengthy college career here at USC. So he played 25 games. He averaged 19 minutes. He shot 36.6% from the floor. He shot 26.7% from 3. He was a 67% free throw shooter. He averaged just under 3 rebounds, just over 2 assists, 0.2 blocks, 0.8 steals, a little under 2 fouls per game, a little over 1 turnover per game, and 4.8 points per game. The transfer portal, I think, makes a lot of sense. I'm just going to keep it a $150 with you. I don't know why he declared for the draft. He just does not currently seem like an NBA caliber talent. I'm not saying he can't get there, because if there's one thing about the James family, It's that they know how to work hard. I could definitely see him, busting it, getting to where like year or two from now he's averaging, if he can average like 15, 8, and 4, I think that would be NBA caliber. But as it stands right now, the only reason why he would get drafted is because a team wants to get LeBron, and I just don't think that's the best decision for him.
Yeah, I don't know. This is tough because as much as I want to see him go, because I want to see him play with LeBron, just because I think that would be just amazing to watch. I mean, we've never seen that in the NBA. We've seen it a few times in like the MLB with like Ken Griffey, Jr. and Senior, but we've never seen something like that in the NBA. So I think it would just be super fascinating to watch them play together. But I just don't know if he's ready. I have heard some NBA scouts say that he has been improving. He's improved as a 3-point shooter. His defense was took a huge step up this throughout the season.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think it just depends on kind of if he impresses some scouts at the combine or whatever draft process they have, pre-draft process. Kind of just putting feelers out there, seeing how it goes. I think the only shot that he would have is, like you said, if a team is willing to take a chance on him in hopes that they're getting LeBron. But I think it also helps that this is not a strong draft. I mean, this is one of the weakest drafts
For sure.
that I can remember. I mean, there is not a single like superstar that is coming out of this draft. And so I could see him going. I mean, why not? If you're one of these teams, like, why not take a swing on him? What, like,
Fair.
so you waste a draft pick, whatever. Like, honestly, you were probably going to waste a draft pick this year anyway because there's not great talent. So if you're going to waste a draft pick, at least take a swing.
Plot twist, they draft they
So
draft plot twist, they draft Reed Shepard, and he just goes like averages 40, 12, and 10 for his first year in the NBA. Just
right.
stupid.
So I could see him, potentially going for that reason, but it'll be interesting to see kind of how this plays out.
For sure. All right, well, let's get on to hot takes and then get out of here. We got kind of a shorter episode today. That's kind of as the seasons wind down, that's kind of where we get. So, I'll start us off. Oh wow, I just saw yours. Fun. My first hot take is that John Calipari will not see the same level of success at Arkansas that he did at Kentucky. I think he is past his prime, and I think this is the beginning of the end of his coaching career.
My first hot take is that the Milwaukee Bucks will lose their first round series in the playoffs.
They what?
I think I think if they get matched up with Philly,
curtains.
It's curtains, man. It's over. As the great Vince Carter said, it's over. So, but yeah, I think with Embiid coming back healthy, he's gonna have insanely fresh legs. He's gonna have fresher legs than anybody out there. And I mean, he's been hooping since he's been back. So, I think they got a shot to pull off an upset there. And I don't think Milwaukee's been playing well. I think their defense is a little suspect. I won't be shocked.
I wouldn't either. All right, my second hot take. Bronny James will not get drafted this year and will instead transfer to a college near LeBron's next team, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Could see a potential Donovan Mitchell for LeBron trade, or even just LeBron signing with Cleveland to end his career there, as it's his hometown team. He grew up there. I just think it'd be very fitting for him to end it there, and they have enough talent that I think that would make a lot of sense. The thing that Cleveland really lacks is a true like point guard.
Yeah, they got Darius Garland.
They've got Darius Garland, but he's kind of almost like a shooting guard disguised as a point guard.
Yeah. I mean, I think he averages like 21 and like 6, 21 7, something like that.
Yeah. So, um, I think that Bronny James could potentially transfer to like Ohio State or somewhere around there, and be around his dad. So that's my second hot take.
My second hot take is that there will be 6 quarterbacks drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. That includes Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, not in any order, by the way. Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Drake May, Jaden
Well, okay.
Daniels, Bo Nix, and
JJ McCarthy.
JJ McCarthy. I said that. I thought of it. That was my idea. There will be 6 quarterbacks drafted in the first round. So that is my hot take.
I mean, I think you're right. I don't think all of those guys should be first round quarterbacks, but I think you're right.
I think teams will be desperate enough to draft him.
Well, yeah.
I did hear that Michael Penix is visiting with the Atlanta Falcons. So that is a potential. I have a feeling Atlanta's not going to draft him at 8. But they could be. I mean, Kirk Cousins is coming off an Achilles tear and he's 36. So let's sit here and act like he's a 24-year-old coming off of a bruised knee.
Kirko Chains. Dog,
I
I
mean,
saw
he's
him.
getting up there.
Dog, I saw him on Kevin Hart's Cold as Balls the other day.
Yeah.
That shit was hilarious.
But yeah, that's my hot take. I think that's all we got, right?
Cool. Yeah, that's it. Like I said, shout out to Iowa, or not Iowa. Yeah, shout out to Iowa for a great season, but shout out to the South Carolina and the Yukon Huskies for their national championships. And yeah, I'm excited to get into the NBA playoffs, and then I guess I can try to get excited for baseball afterwards. But until next time, guys, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on our YouTube channel. Make sure you find us on TikTok and Instagram at the Rundown Sports Pod. Also, you can find us on your favorite podcast service, such as Apple Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google, and wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, guys, have a nice one. Thank you.